They laughed at you, loud, careless, and cruel, the kind of laughter that doesn't just fade into the background but lingers, echoing in your mind long after the moment has passed. They smirked when you failed, they whispered when you stumbled, they shared knowing glances, silent confirmation that you would never make it. Every step you took forward, every tiny attempt to rise, was met with condescension, amusement, and mockery. You weren't just doubted, you were discarded, as if you were never meant to be anything but the background character in someone else's success story. You were underestimated, not because you lacked potential, but because it was easier for them to believe that you didn't have what it takes. Because to acknowledge your strength, even in its infancy, would mean admitting that they might have been wrong about you, and that was unacceptable to them. You remember the exact moments, don't you? The smirk of a teacher when you gave the wrong answer, the patronizing nod of a so-called friend when you shared your dreams, the cold silence after you failed. Again, they didn't even bother to pretend they believed in you. They just watched, waiting for the inevitable. Because to them, failure was your destiny. It was a joke they had already written the punchline for. You heard it in their voices, that dismissive tone disguised as concern. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you should be more realistic. Not everyone is meant for greatness, you know. They weren't advising you, they were predicting your downfall. And when you tried to fight against their expectations, they laughed harder. They laughed because they had already decided that you weren't worth taking seriously. They laughed because they mistook your struggle for weakness, your hesitation for incompetence. They laughed because they assumed that just because you weren't winning yet, you never would. And that laughter, it wasn't just noise, it was weight. You carried it with you. It settled in your chest, heavy and suffocating, making you doubt yourself in ways you never had before. Was this how it was always going to be? Were they right about you? It's funny how mockery works. It doesn't just come from strangers. It comes from people who should have supported you. People you once trusted. People whose approval you once chased, only to realize too late that they were never going to give it. Their words weren't just insults. They were knives, carving self-doubt into the very fabric of your being. And when they saw you struggling, they didn't help. They didn't reach out a hand. They stood at a distance, amused, because your failure was entertainment to them. It was validation for their low expectations. And when you dared to dream, when you dared to believe you could be something more, they shook their heads and laughed. But the worst part, it wasn't their laughter, it was yours. The quiet, bitter laughter inside your own head when you started believing them. When you looked in the mirror and saw exactly what they saw. Someone who wasn't enough. Someone who wasn't strong enough, smart enough, talented enough. And so, you shrank. You stopped speaking up. You stopped trying. Because what was the point? They had already decided your fate. They had already labeled you a joke. But here's the thing about being laughed at. It does something to you. It burns. It scars. But if you let it, it hardens you. It sharpens you. It turns you into something they never saw coming. Because what they never realized was this. Every joke has a punchline. And yours, it's coming. There comes a moment, a brutal, soul-shaking moment where it finally sinks in. They don't see your worth. Not now, not ever. They never have, they never intended to. Because to them, you are always just another face in the crowd. Another lost cause, another story without a happy ending. And that realization, it doesn't set you free. It buries you. It forces you into the most violent war you'll ever fight. Not against them, but against yourself. Because their laughter, their dismissal, their doubt, that was expected. But the real betrayal? The moment you started believing them. At first, you fought back, told yourself they were wrong, tried to hold on to the fire in your chest, the defiant spark that whispered, I am more than this. But day after day, hit after hit, that spark got dimmer. The more they ignored you, the more they laughed. The harder it became to believe your own voice. Doubt crept in like poison. What if they were right? What if you were just wasting your time chasing a dream that would never be yours? What if you weren't meant to be anything more than this? An afterthought, a shadow, a footnote in someone else's success story. You tried to shake it off, forced yourself to pretend you didn't care, but the weight of it grew heavier. Every day, another reason to quit, another reason to stop fighting. And then, something even more dangerous happened. You got comfortable being the joke. You learned how to laugh at yourself first, just so it wouldn't hurt as much when they did it. You played along, pretended you didn't want more, because wanting more, that was risky. That was painful. That was dangerous. If you kept trying, you might fail, and failing meant proving them right. So you stopped. You lowered your expectations. You convinced yourself that maybe this was all you were ever meant to be. And that's when the real suffering began. Not in the form of their laughter, not in the form of their doubt, but in the form of silence. Because when you stop trying, when you stop fighting, the world, it moves on without you. The calls stop coming, the opportunities vanish, you become invisible. And in that suffocating silence, you realize the truth. You were never a joke, you were a threat. Because people don't laugh at the weak, they laugh at the ones they fear might prove them wrong. But that fear, it's not their burden, it's yours. And now you have a choice. Stay the joke, or become the punchline that hits back. There comes a point where you can't ignore it anymore. You can't keep living in the shadows of their laughter. You can't keep shrinking under the weight of their doubts. You can't keep pretending that their words don't cut, that their mockery doesn't sting, that their dismissal doesn't burn a hole through your soul. This is the moment of decision. You either stay the joke, accept their version of your story and let their laughter become the soundtrack of your life, or you become the punchline that hits back. It's not an easy choice. It never is. Because choosing to rise means choosing war, not just against them, but against the version of yourself that let them keep you down for this long. But here's the truth they never tell you. Humiliation is power in disguise. They think their laughter is a weapon. They think their ridicule is enough to break you. But what they don't realize is that shame, when harnessed, is one of the most explosive fuels known to man. Because if you've been at the bottom, if you've been mocked, ignored, discarded, then you know what pain feels like. And that means you also know what it means to never want to feel that way again. That's where it starts. The first steps toward proving them wrong are never grand, never dramatic. They happen in the dark, in silence, when no one is watching. When you're alone, staring at yourself in the mirror, finally asking the question, what if I am more than this? It starts when you pick up that book instead of scrolling mindlessly through your phone. When you show up to the gym on the days you don't feel like it. When you stay up an extra hour working, learning, building, while they waste their time talking about you. It starts when you stop seeking their validation and start writing your own destiny. And then comes the breaking point, the moment where the fire inside you erupts. Maybe it's after another failure, maybe it's after another insult, maybe it's just a random night where the weight of everything crashes down on you, and you realize, enough. Enough letting them decide your worth, enough living for their approval, enough being the joke. That's when you stop running from the pain and start feeding off it. And this is the birth of the punchline philosophy. They laughed at you? Good. Let them. Because every joke has a punchline, and yours? It's gonna hit harder than they ever imagined. From this moment forward, their laughter is no longer your weakness, it's your weapon. Their doubt, your fuel. Their mockery, your motivation. Their disbelief, the reason you will rise. You don't need to silence them. You don't need to make them stop laughing. You just need to make sure that by the time you're done, the only sound left in the room is their silence. Something shifts inside you. The weight that once crushed you no longer feels the same. It no longer holds you down. It hardens you. The world still laughs, but you're no longer afraid of it, because now you understand something they don't. You're not the victim anymore. You're the warrior. This is where the game changes. The same people who mocked you, the ones who laughed at your dreams, the ones who wrote you off, they don't realize what they've done. Every insult, every dismissal, every rejection was a lesson, a sharpening, a training ground for your resilience. They thought they were breaking you. They were building you. Because underdogs don't win by accident. They win because they play by a different set of rules. Rule 1. This is you versus them. Not in the way they think, not by stooping to their level, not by playing their petty games. No, this isn't about revenge. This is about domination. This is about turning their doubt into discipline, their mockery into momentum, their laughter into leverage. They expect you to react, to lash out, to crumble, to fold. Instead, you build in silence, in the dark. While they waste their time talking, you become the threat they never saw coming. Rule 2, the law of inevitable ridicule. If they're not laughing, you're not doing anything big enough. Think about it. Every person who ever changed the game was mocked before they were celebrated. Every visionary, every leader, every champion was ridiculed before they were respected. Because small minds laugh at what they don't understand. So when they laugh at you now, take it as a sign. It means you're doing something right. It means you're thinking bigger than them, moving faster than them, operating on a level they can't comprehend. That laughter, it's the last sound they make before they realize you're unstoppable. And when that moment comes, when the world finally sees what you've built, what you've become, they won't be laughing anymore. They'll be silent, and you'll be the one smiling. The battlefield isn't out there, it's inside you. This is the training ground, the place where the weak break and the strong are built, where the old version of you dies and something ruthless, disciplined, and unstoppable is born. Success isn't an accident. It's not a lucky break. It's a war of inches, fought in the small, brutal choices you make every single day. And the first thing you must understand, rituals create warriors. The world will never respect you if you don't respect yourself first. That means showing up when no one is watching. That means mastering the art of discipline before the world gives you recognition. The greats, the real ones, they don't wait for motivation. They manufacture it. Every morning you wake up and the first thought in your head is this: am I the same as yesterday? If the answer is yes, you've already lost. The daily rituals of transformation aren't glamorous. They're not Instagram worthy. They're ugly, painful, and lonely. They happen in the dark, when no one is clapping for you, when no one believes in you. You train when they sleep. You study when they party. You build when they scroll mindlessly through their phones. Because this isn't about impressing them anymore. This is about becoming undeniable. But here's the price of greatness: sacrifice. You want to rise, you must give up everything that keeps you small. The comfort, the distractions, the need for approval, the fake friendships, the mindless entertainment that numbs your ambition. Everything that pulls you back to the old version of yourself must go, and it will hurt. Your mind will beg you to stop. It will cling to the old habits, the easy choices, the temporary pleasures. It will try to convince you that maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should go back. This is where the war begins. Your mind is your greatest weapon, but only if you learn how to control it. Weak minds serve their emotions, strong minds command them. You don't train just your body. You train your mind like a weapon, sharpening it every day, forging it through struggle. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who have it easy. They're the ones who learn how to function under pressure, doubt, and pain. And pain? That's the greatest motivator you'll ever have. Most people run from it. They numb it, avoid it, pretend it's not there. But you use it. Pain is fuel. Pain is a lesson. Pain is a teacher. You let it burn. You let it carve new depths into your soul. You let it remind you why you're doing this in the first place. And every second, every hour, every day, they still doubt you. They still laugh. They still whisper. But now you love the hate. Because every insult, every doubt, every smirk is another rep in your mental gym. It's another reason to push harder. It's another confirmation that you're onto something bigger than they can comprehend. You don't run from their doubt anymore. You feed off it. And soon, they'll regret every word they ever spoke against you. The shift has begun. The old version of you is fading, but the world hasn't noticed yet. At first, it's small, almost invisible. Tiny victories that only you can see. The early mornings, the extra reps, the discipline when no one is looking, the hunger that no longer fades. You start moving differently, thinking differently, reacting differently. The old triggers don't shake you. The insults don't sting like they used to. The laughter doesn't echo the way it once did. But they still dismiss you. They still think you're the same. They still think you haven't changed. They don't see it yet.
And that's your advantage.
Because there's a certain power in being ignored. While they waste their time looking in the wrong direction, you build in the shadows. While they overlook you, you sharpen your edge. While they sleep, you grind. And suddenly, you don't crave their recognition anymore. The validation you once begged for, you don't need it. You don't care if they see you, because for the first time, you see yourself. That's the real turning point, not when they acknowledge you, but when you acknowledge yourself. The beast within is stirring, the monster inside is awakening. And then, the moment happens, they see the first glimpse of your transformation. Maybe it's a small thing, a win they didn't expect, a silence they don't know how to interpret, a shift in your energy that unsettles them. And suddenly they feel uneasy, because now, you're not predictable anymore. You're not the joke they once laughed at. You're not the failure they were so sure of. Something is different. Something is dangerous. And for the first time, they wonder, did we underestimate them? They don't say it out loud, but you can feel it. The hesitation, the discomfort, the uncertainty. Good, let them sit with it, because what's coming next, they won't be ready for it. It happens in an instant, but it's been building for a long time. The turning point, the moment they can no longer ignore you. For years, they laughed, mocked, dismissed. But now there's a pause, a hesitation in their voices, a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. Because something has changed. You are no longer the underdog they pitied. You are the threat they never saw coming. At first, the world is slow to recognize it. The tables are turning, but they're still clinging to the old narrative. They try to undermine you, discredit you, pretend that your success is a fluke. They got lucky. It won't last. Let's see if they can do it again. They're scrambling, desperate to hold on to the idea that you are still beneath them, but something about the way you move, the way you carry yourself, tells them otherwise. And then, the first public victory. Maybe it's a business deal, a championship win, a viral moment, a long-awaited success. Whatever it is, it's undeniable. The world sees it, they see it, and suddenly their confidence begins to shake, because now the whispers start. Wait, were we wrong about them? How did this happen? How did they become this? They don't say it to your face, not yet, but you feel it. The slow, sweet agony of their realization. They doubted you, mocked you, threw you away, and now, they don't know what to do with you, because for the first time, you are not beneath them. You are beyond them. Success doesn't bring applause from everyone. It brings resentment. They hate seeing you rise. It makes them uncomfortable, unsettled, because your success is a mirror, a brutal, unforgiving reflection of their own failures. They'd rather you stay in your place, the place they assigned you, the version of you that was easy to dismiss, easy to ridicule, the version that made them feel secure in their mediocrity. But now you make them feel small. The same people who mocked you, the ones who laughed the loudest, suddenly act like they never did. Their tone shifts, their energy changes. They start reaching out, pretending they were always in your corner. I always knew you had it in you. I saw your potential from the start. Remember when I gave you advice? Look at you now. Some even try to claim credit for your growth, rewriting history as if they were part of your journey instead of your opposition. They don't celebrate you. They tolerate you. Not because they respect you, but because they fear you. And behind the forced smiles and fake congratulations, jealousy, resentment, hidden sabotage, they whisper behind your back, searching for ways to discredit you. They got lucky. They changed. They think they're better than us now. Let's see how long it lasts. The energy around you shifts. It's no longer just laughter. It's envy, disguised as indifference. And this is where many fail. Because the old you, the one that wanted to be accepted, that wanted to prove them wrong, that version of you might have craved their approval, might have wanted to explain yourself, win them over. But not this time. This time, you handle it differently. You don't argue. You don't defend yourself. You don't waste a second trying to prove anything to them. You let them watch. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them choke on their own resentment, because their emotions are no longer your concern. Their discomfort, that's their burden to carry. Your job? To keep rising. Higher, faster, so far ahead that by the time they stop resenting you, you're already untouchable. This is the moment they never saw coming, the moment you always knew was inevitable. The final blow isn't loud, it isn't chaotic, it doesn't need to be, because success is the loudest silence of all. Your undeniable success stands before them, unshakable, unquestionable, unstoppable. They can't ignore it, they can't discredit it, they can't mock it anymore. And that's when it happens. Their laughter, it dies in their throat. You see it in their eyes, that slow, sinking realization that the joke was never on you. It was on them. Because while they wasted years doubting you, laughing at you, ridiculing you, you were building. And now, they are the ones seeking your approval. The same people who once dismissed you now want your attention. They want to be seen with you. They want your validation, your favor, your connection. They act like they've always supported you, like they were part of your journey, like they deserve a seat at your table. And now, you face the final decision. Should you forgive them? Pretend it never happened? Let them stand beside you as if they never doubted you? Or should you leave them behind? Let them sit in the same place they left you, watching from a distance, realizing too late that they underestimated the wrong person. This is your power move, not to be petty, not to seek revenge, but to show them that you never needed them. That the moment they stopped believing in you, you started believing in yourself. And that was all you ever needed. You've arrived. The battles have been fought. The war is over. The underdog, no longer an underdog. The joke, no longer the punchline. You stand where they swore you'd never be. The world that once laughed at you now watches in awe. You've won. But now comes the question no one prepared you for. What now? Because no one talks about this part, the part where you make it, only to realize that success isn't the fairy tale they made it out to be. You thought reaching the top would bring relief. It doesn't, because success is lonely. The journey was filled with noise, doubt, laughter, hate, but now, silence. The ones who mocked you have vanished. The ones who doubted you are too ashamed to speak. The ones who once dismissed you now act like they always believed in you. And you're left with yourself. For years, proving them wrong fueled you. It pushed you through the darkest nights, the hardest battles, the most brutal self-doubt. But now, the war is over, and for the first time, revenge doesn't feel as satisfying as you thought it would. Because power? Real power. It isn't about rubbing your success in their faces. It isn't about making them regret ever doubting you. It's about proving yourself right. The real flex isn't getting even. It's outgrowing the need to. Because greatness, it isn't about them anymore. It never was. And now, as you stand at the top, you finally understand the real enemy was never their doubt. It was yours. And now that it's gone, there are no limits to what comes next. There's someone out there right now, sitting exactly where you once were, doubted, mocked, ignored. They feel like a joke, just like you once did. They hear the laughter, they feel the weight of every rejection, every insult, every moment of being overlooked, and right now, they don't know if they'll ever make it out. But you do, because you've been there. You've felt that pain, and now, you're proof that it doesn't have to end that way. This is your new mission. You've already won. You've already proven them wrong. Now, it's about something bigger. Now, it's about making sure that no other underdog ever has to feel like they're alone. Because the truth is simple. Every joke has a punchline, but the world doesn't get to decide what it is. You do. So, to the ones still in the trenches, still being laughed at, still being doubted, still feeling invisible, this is for you. Let them laugh, let them talk, let them doubt, and then make them regret it. Turn their mockery into momentum. Turn their laughter into leverage. And when the day comes that you rise, when you stand at the top and they no longer dare to doubt you, you'll understand the truth. You were never the joke, you were always the punchline. The moment has arrived, the full circle moment that life had been setting up all along. They thought you were a joke, a nobody, a failure, a waste of time. But now, every success of yours is a punchline that hits them harder than they ever hit you. Every win, every milestone, every achievement, a reminder of how wrong they were, a brutal, inescapable truth they can no longer deny. They tried to write you off, but you rewrote the story. And now, you are the proof. The proof that the underdog doesn't just win, they dominate. The proof that laughter fades, but resilience lasts forever. The proof that every insult, every doubt, every setback was nothing more than fuel for your rise. And yet, despite everything, this isn't the end. The credits roll, but your journey far from over. Because this isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that there's still more to do, still more to become, still more mountains to climb. Because legends aren't built on one victory. They are built on a lifetime of never stopping. So let them talk, let them whisper, let them watch. Because the punchline is still being written.